Pakistan over the last few years has really picked up pace on cashless transactions, on digital payments, but they aren't really enough even right now. Currency in circulation continues to increase, and we are somewhere in the range of 12 trillion rupees right now. That's essentially 12 trillion rupees of currency notes just sloshing around here, there, and everywhere. And of those currency notes, almost I would say 60% of those notes are denominated in the 5,000 rupee note, another maybe 15 to 20%, obviously these are estimates, is in the 1,000 rupee note. So what we are seeing is the 5,000 rupee note having the major chunk of whatever currency is in circulation. Now, why does that even exist? Why can't we just get rid of the 5,000 rupee note? Because it just exists in the system. A lot of transactions still continue to happen on it. So interestingly, what's happening is a lot of digital transactions that are happening, cashless transactions are happening, are largely happening at a retail level. So if you go into the market, you buy something, there's a high likelihood that you're going to pay through a digital medium. It can be a card, it can be through a bank transfer, it can be something. Bank transfers have significantly shot up in Pakistan, but there's another alarming trend that's happening. Withdrawals from bank branches are much higher than the actual deposits. So even though you may be transferring at a retail level when you're buying something, the end consumer may be doing that, but within that value chain between the wholesaler and the retailer, and between the importer and the wholesaler, or between the manufacturer and the wholesaler, there is still a gap, and a lot of that gap is essentially covered through various forms, whether that's cash, whether it is checks which just keep rolling between multiple parties, so on and so forth. So that is now the value chain that essentially needs to be digitized. For example, in the case of agriculture, the massive agriculture economy, about a quarter of our economy is largely agri based, and the prevalence of digital transactions in those is close to zero. When the major input providers or major buyers in many of these commodities are essentially large companies, or they're well regulated, they're taxed, but still a lot of transactions continue to happen in cash. So the next big thing that actually needs to be done is essentially digitizing those transactions, the B2B transactions that continue to happen in cash. The retail, the B2C level, the business to consumer level of transactions have been done, have been digitized. People continue to pay. Merchants, they continue to accept payments digitally, but the problem remains, even the merchants are accepting payments in their own personal accounts. So there needs to be a transition from personal to merchant, so that we can categorize the data well, we can categorize the details well. And once that is done, once we have moved on, evolved to that stage, in parallel, we also need to really look at how the B2B market works. For example, in the case of agri, for example, in the case of livestock, pretty much everything. For example, in the case of imported goods, because a lot of those goods just exchange, a lot of cash transactions happen in that value chain as well. So we need to identify cash clusters. And a lot of construction material, for example, the cement producers may be formal, they may be listed companies, but a lot of transactions that happen following that are largely cash based, or in the case of steel, so on and so forth. It needs to be sorted. And then you've got steel. A lot of transactions effectively happen on cash basis as well. So it's effectively, we need to identify cash clusters, and then we need to target them. Then there's a case of merchants where a lot of merchants still accept payments in their personal accounts. There needs to be a transition there as well. So we have made progress on the cashless front, but a lot more needs to be done. But why does a lot more needs to be done? Why do we even need to go cashless? Cashless does not mean fully going cash. It's essentially digitizing transactions and formalizing the economy. It is estimated that informal economy is roughly 45% of total economy size. So, for example, if the formal economy size is roughly 300 billion, another 150 billion or 140 billion would be the informal economy. That needs to be brought in the tax net, that needs to be formalized such that the overall GDP can expand, and more importantly, we can allocate resources accordingly. So cash is not just a way, let's say in a lot of cases, it's just a way to control. It's not, it's just formalizing the economy. It is to ensure that necessary taxes are collected, and more importantly, undocumented and the gray economy can be minimized, because eventually it's you and I who are taxpayers who are doing our formal businesses, paying for the inefficiency of those who are not paying taxes.